Rain pounded hard on Manila's streets that December night, transforming avenues into dark rivers and sidewalks into wet mirrors reflecting the city's neon lights. Manny Pacquiao drove alone along Taft Avenue, returning from a charity dinner at Malacanang Palace, his mind still processing the impressive statistics about child poverty in the Philippines he had heard during the event. The boxer, now a senator, had the habit of personally driving through Manila's streets at night, a practice his security team hated but which he considered essential to stay connected with the reality of the Filipino people. When he stopped at a traffic light on the corner of Vito Cruz, something caught his attention in the darkness of an abandoned awning. A small, curved figure held something against her chest, protecting herself from the rain streaming down the broken edges of the covering. Manny rolled down his car window, ignoring the water that began to splash on his face, and realized it was a young woman, appearing to be no more than 25 years old, holding a baby in her arms. The red light seemed to last forever as Manny observed the scene unfolding before him. The woman swayed the baby gently, whispering something in its ear, her soaked clothes clinging to her thin body, revealing the fragility of someone who hadn't eaten properly for a long time. A plastic bag beside her contained what appeared to be her only possessions: some wet clothes, an empty bottle, and pieces of cardboard she was trying to use as protection against the cold rain. Other cars honked impatiently behind Manny when the light turned green, but he remained still, as if time had frozen. Memories of his own childhood invaded his mind. Nights when his family had nowhere to sleep, when his mother Dionysia held him and his siblings under whatever shelter they could find. The difference was that, back then, at least they had each other and an eventual roof to return to. Without hesitation, Manny parked his car in the first space he found and got out into the rain, not caring about his expensive suit that quickly became drenched. He walked toward the awning, his steps cautious not to frighten the young mother. As he approached, he could see her face more clearly, protruding bones evidencing malnutrition, sunken but still bright eyes with a fierce determination to protect her child, cracked lips whispering lullabies in Tagalog. The woman looked up when she noticed someone approaching, her expression instantly changing to a mixture of fear and distrust. She pressed the baby closer to her chest and shrank further into the shadows, clearly accustomed to being chased away or abused by strangers. Her hands trembled, not just from cold, but from exhaustion and terror that someone might try to harm her child. Manny stopped a few meters away, his own hands visible to show he posed no threat. For a moment, both stared at each other in silence, the rain falling between them like a curtain separating two completely different worlds. The world champion's heart beat fast, not from the proximity of an important fight, but from the proximity of raw and desperate humanity that touched the deepest part of his soul. Manny slowly crouched down, lowering his height so as not to intimidate the young mother, and removed his jacket, silently offering it to protect the baby from the rain. The woman hesitated for long seconds, her eyes studying the stranger's face, looking for signs of danger or ill intent. When he whispered a soft "para se baby" for the baby, she nodded almost imperceptibly and allowed him to cover the child with the expensive, dry coat. It was then that Manny saw the baby's face for the first time, a girl of no more than 6 months, with chubby cheeks despite the family's precarious situation, large and curious eyes that stared at him without fear. The little one didn't cry, as if she had already learned from early on that drawing attention could be dangerous. Her tiny fingers gripped firmly to her mother's torn blouse, and Manny could see that, despite all adversity, the child was clean and cared for as best a mother could manage under impossible circumstances. The mother, who introduced herself only as Rosa, began to speak in broken phrases, her voice hoarse from so much time exposed to the elements. She told him that she had lost her job as a cleaning assistant at a shopping mall when her pregnancy began to show, and the baby's father disappeared the day he learned of the pregnancy. Without family to help, and with the little money she had exhausted during the baby's first months of life, Rosa and little Sophia had been living on the streets for 3 weeks. Manny listened to every word with an intensity he rarely dedicated even to the most important Senate meetings. Rosa spoke about her desperate attempts to find work, carrying Sophia to all interviews, only to be immediately rejected when appearing with a baby. She mentioned nights when she walked the streets until morning because it was too dangerous to sleep, days when she shared her only piece of bread with her daughter, and how she used diapers made from old rags because she had no money to buy real ones. What most impressed Manny was the dignity with which Rosa told her story. There was no self-pity in her voice, no direct requests for help. She spoke like a mother explaining a temporary situation, always referring to her plans to find work, her determination to give Sophia a better life. In her eyes, despite extreme exhaustion, shone a strength that Manny immediately recognized. It was the same strength he had seen in his own mother's eyes during the hardest times. When Rosa mentioned she had studied nursing before getting pregnant, but couldn't afford to graduate due to certification fees, something ignited in Manny's chest. He began to understand that he wasn't just facing a victim of circumstances, but an intelligent and capable woman who needed only an opportunity to rebuild her life. The rain had diminished to a fine drizzle, but neither moved, as if both knew this encounter would change the course of their lives forever. During the following 20 minutes, as they talked under the awning, Manny gradually revealed himself as an ordinary person interested in helping, without mentioning who he was. Rosa, in turn, showed no sign of recognizing him, focused entirely on protecting her daughter and telling her story with brutal honesty that cut straight to the heart. It was as if two souls met at the most human level possible, stripped of social status, fame, or material possessions. As Rosa adjusted her daughter in her arms, Manny's jacket slipped slightly, revealing a name embroidered on the inner pocket: D. Pacquiao, Senate. The young mother frowned for a moment, her eyes moving from the embroidery to the face of the man before her. Slowly, recognition began to form in her gaze, not as a boxing fan, but as someone who had seen that face on news programs and political shows that played on hospital TVs where she took Sophia for charity consultations. Rosa became visibly tense, her body contracting as if ready to flee. She had been deceived and humiliated by important people before. Campaign politicians who promised help for TV cameras and disappeared the next day, businessmen who pretended interest in hiring single mothers only to exploit them. Her experience had taught her that famous people often use the poor as props for their public images, and she feared Manny had similar intentions. Noticing her change in posture, Manny quickly raised his hands in a gesture of peace, whispering that there were no cameras, no media team, no political motives. He explained he was simply driving home when he saw her, and his only intention was to help a mother and her baby in need. To prove his words, he turned his pockets inside out, showing only wallet, keys, and cell phone, no recording equipment or communication with teams. It was then that Rosa did something that completely surprised Manny. She began to cry. Not tears of gratitude or relief, but tears of emotional exhaustion, from someone who had carried the weight of the world alone for so long that she had forgotten what it was like to have someone offering genuine help. She revealed that she knew many stories about Manny's humble origins, about how he never forgot where he came from, and that a secret part of her had always hoped to meet someone who would truly understand her struggle. Between sobs, Rosa told him she had been a boxing fan as a teenager, not for the sport itself, but because Manny's victories represented hope for people like her, poor, forgotten, fighting against impossible odds. She confessed that during the coldest nights on the street, when Sophia cried from hunger and she had nothing to give, she thought about stories of how Manny's mother used to sew clothes to support the family, and this gave her strength to continue. The most shocking revelation came when Rosa mentioned that her own mother had been a domestic worker in the Pacquiao family's house when Manny was still starting in boxing, decades ago. The woman had died when Rosa was a teenager, but before dying, she always told stories about the kindness of the Pacquiao family, especially Dionysia, who treated all employees like family. Rosa had grown up hearing that, despite growing fame, the Pacquiaos never changed their humble and generous essence. Manny remained silent for long moments, processing this unexpected connection between their families. He vaguely remembered a young woman who helped his mother with household chores in the 90s, always smiling and hard-working. The idea that this woman's daughter was now on the street, struggling to survive with a baby, while he lived comfortably, made something break inside his chest. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring this situation to his path, reminding him that his responsibility went far beyond rings and the Senate. In that moment, under the wet awning on an avenue in Manila, two worlds collided in a way that would change everyone's lives forever. It was no longer a famous politician encountering a person in need, but a son recognizing the daughter of someone who had been part of his family's journey. It was a connection that transcended social class, fame, or circumstances, connecting two generations through kindness and shared struggle. Manny knew he couldn't leave Rosa and Sophia on the street that night, especially with the rain intensifying again and the temperature beginning to drop. Without consulting advisors or considering possible political complications, he offered his car so they could spend the night in a safe place. Rosa hesitated, still distrustful of hidden motives, but one look at Sophia, who was beginning to shiver with cold even with a jacket, convinced her to accept the help. The journey to the simple hotel Manny chose was made in silence, broken only by Sophia's soft sounds making spit bubbles and Rosa's occasional sighs of relief. Manny drove carefully, watching through the rearview mirror as the young mother marveled at the simple luxury of being in a heated and dry car. She held Sophia firmly, but no longer with the defensive desperation of before. There was a tentative permission to relax, the first moment of security she had felt in weeks. At the hotel, Manny requested a simple but comfortable room, paying in advance for an entire week. He explained to the receptionist that his niece needed a temporary place, a small white lie to avoid unnecessary questions. Rosa observed everything in silence, still trying to process how her life had changed drastically in a matter of hours. When they received the keys, she murmured an almost inaudible "Salamat pur," thank you, the first words of gratitude she could express. In the room, the transformation in Rosa was immediate and moving. She placed Sophia on the king-size bed, creating a small fortress of pillows around the baby, and for the first time in weeks, allowed herself to sit without being constantly alert. Her shoulders relaxed, her features softened, and she looked around as if she were in a palace, though it was just a standard hotel room with private bathroom and mini-fridge. Manny had left quickly to buy essential supplies, proper diapers, clean clothes for both, baby food, and a hot meal for Rosa. When he returned, he found mother and daughter coming out of the shower. Rosa had used the hotel soap to wash both herself and Sophia, and both looked radiant with cleanliness. Seeing Rosa carefully washing her daughter in the bathroom sink, humming softly, was a moment Manny would keep forever in his memory. During the first proper meal Rosa had had in a week, she began to open up more about her situation. She revealed she had lost the apartment she shared with 3 other people when she couldn't pay her share of the rent after losing her job. She told about her humiliating visits to government agencies, where she was treated as a statistic, not as a person. She mentioned nights in overcrowded shelters where they stole her few belongings, forcing her to choose the street as the safer option. What most touched Manny was discovering that Rosa had kept a diary throughout her ordeal, writing letters to Sophia that she intended to give her daughter when she grew up. She showed a small, stained notebook where she recorded each small achievement. Today Sophia smiled for the first time. I got enough powdered milk for 3 days. We found a dry place to sleep. It was proof that, even in the deepest adversity, she found ways to celebrate life and maintain hope. On that first night at the hotel, Manny stayed in the lobby for several hours, not because he doubted Rosa, but because he wanted to ensure they were truly safe. He watched other guests, making sure no one was paying excessive attention to Rosa's room. When he finally went home, he couldn't sleep, his mind agitated with plans and possibilities. He knew a hotel room was just a temporary solution. Rosa and Sophia needed something much more sustainable and dignified. During the following days, Manny visited Rosa and Sophia daily, always bringing practical necessities but also dedicating time to getting to know them better. It was during one of these visits that he discovered something extraordinary about Rosa. She possessed remarkable medical knowledge and a natural intuition for healthcare that went far beyond her formal education. When Sophia developed a small skin irritation, Rosa created a homemade solution using simple ingredients from the hotel, demonstrating not just knowledge, but a delicacy and precision of someone born to be a caregiver. Rosa revealed that, before getting pregnant, she had been one of the best students in her nursing course, consistently at the top of the class in both theory and clinical practice. Her professors used to comment on her natural ability to connect with patients, especially children and elderly, who felt instantly comfortable in her presence. She had dreamed of specializing in pediatric nursing, working in public hospitals, helping families like her own. What broke Manny's heart was discovering that Rosa was just one discipline and certification fees away from graduating when she discovered her pregnancy. She had desperately tried to balance studies, work, and pregnancy, but severe morning sickness made her miss many classes, and her eventual job fired her when medical leaves became frequent. Without income to pay tuition, she was forced to abandon the course when she was so close to her goal. During one conversation, Rosa casually mentioned that she had helped other homeless people with health problems during the weeks she spent on the street. She had treated infected wounds with improvised resources, advised diabetics on basic care, and even helped deliver a teenager's baby under a viaduct, using only clean water and rags sterilized with alcohol she had begged from pharmacies. Her hands, though calloused from hard life, maintained the precise delicacy of someone trained for surgeries and medical procedures. Manny was impressed when Rosa demonstrated her knowledge while caring for Sophia during a small fever episode. She monitored temperature, adjusted hydration, applied appropriate cooling techniques, and kept detailed symptom records, all with the precision of a veteran nurse. When he suggested they see a doctor, Rosa provided information so detailed and organized that the pediatrician commented she had instincts of someone in the medical field. The most surprising discovery came when Rosa shyly admitted she had developed some innovations during her studies: more efficient methods for administering medication to resistant children, bandaging techniques that caused less pain and lasted longer, care protocols that increased patients' psychological comfort. She had documented everything in notebooks she lost when evicted, but the memory remained clear. Manny realized he wasn't just helping a mother in need, but potentially saving a career that could benefit thousands of people. It was at this moment that Manny began to formulate a more ambitious plan than simply ensuring housing and sustenance for Rosa and Sophia. He saw in Rosa not just someone who needed help, but someone whose help was desperately needed by the Philippines' healthcare system. The irony wasn't lost on him. While public hospitals struggled with lack of qualified and compassionate professionals, a talented nurse lived on the streets simply because she lacked resources to complete her training. Throughout this discovery, Rosa maintained impressive humility, never boasting about her knowledge or skills. She answered Manny's questions about medicine and healthcare as if they were casual conversations, not realizing she was revealing a level of competence that many certified professionals would take years to develop. It was as if she had been born to care for others, and circumstances had only temporarily diverted her natural trajectory. Manny spent several nights awake developing a plan that could not only transform Rosa and Sophia's lives, but also create a lasting impact on the community. He discreetly contacted some of his doctor friends and hospital administrators, asking about possibilities for special programs for healthcare professionals in exceptional situations. The response was unanimously positive. The Filipino healthcare system desperately needed qualified and compassionate nurses like Rosa. The first step was connecting Rosa with the completion program at the University of Santo Tomas, where Manny had used his influence to secure a full scholarship. The university agreed to accept Rosa's previous credits and create a personalized accelerated program that would allow her to graduate in 6 months, considering her exceptional practical experience. More importantly, they arranged daycare on campus for Sophia, allowing Rosa to attend classes without worries. Simultaneously, Manny used his network of contacts to get Rosa a simple but dignified apartment in a residential complex near the university. It wasn't luxurious, but it had everything mother and baby needed: 2 small bedrooms, functional kitchen, private bathroom, and a small balcony where Sophia could get morning sun. Most importantly, Rosa would have independence. Manny paid only the first year, after which she could support herself with a salary she would earn as a graduate nurse. To ensure sustenance during the study period, Manny arranged a part-time job for Rosa at the university hospital, where she could apply practical knowledge while studying. The medical director, a personal friend of Manny's, was impressed when he interviewed Rosa, commenting that it was rare to find a candidate with such a natural combination of technical knowledge and genuine empathy. She would start in the pediatric department, where her skills would be most valued. What differentiated this plan from typical charitable actions was that Manny structured everything to ensure Rosa's dignity and independence. There were no contracts binding her to any future commitments to him or his organizations. There was no publicity or media campaigns exploiting her transformation. It was assistance specifically designed to allow Rosa to build her own life, using her own talents, in a sustainable and lasting way. When Manny presented the plan to Rosa, she first remained silent for long minutes, holding Sophia and processing the magnitude of the opportunities offered. Tears silently ran down her face, not tears of submissive gratitude, but tears of someone who finally saw a realistic path to rebuild her life and give her daughter the future she had dreamed of. She accepted with one condition. She wanted to document her entire journey to eventually help other mothers in similar situations. The transition was smooth but emotionally intense. Rosa quickly adapted to the apartment, transforming it into a welcoming home with few resources but much love. Sophia, now in a stable environment, began to flourish, showing accelerated development and a cheerful personality. The first weeks at the university were challenging for Rosa, who needed to rebuild academic confidence, but her professors quickly noticed her exceptional dedication and natural aptitude. What most impressed everyone around was how Rosa flourished when given the opportunity. At the hospital, patients specifically asked for her, feeling safer under her care. Her fellow students sought her out for study groups, recognizing her intuitive understanding of complex concepts. Professors began considering her for advanced specialization programs, seeing potential for significant future contributions to Philippine medicine. 6 months later, Rosa graduated as one of the top students in her class, with Sophia in her arms during the graduation ceremony. Manny was present, sitting discreetly at the back of the auditorium, watching with pride as the young woman he had found on the street received academic honors and job offers from multiple important hospitals. The contrast with that rainy night on Taft Avenue was so dramatic it seemed surreal, but every step of the journey had been earned through Rosa's determination and hard work. Her thesis about pediatric care in low-income communities was considered revolutionary by professors. Rosa had combined lived experience with academic research, proposing innovative protocols for treating children in vulnerable situations. Several of her ideas were already being experimentally implemented at the university hospital, with promising results that attracted attention from other institutions around the country. Rosa chose to work at Philippine General Hospital, the same public hospital where she had taken Sophia for basic checkups during her days on the street. Now, she returned not as a needy patient, but as a highly qualified professional dedicated to improving care for families exactly like she had been. Her first week was emotional, recognizing nurses who had been kind to her during her time of desperation, now treating her as an equal and colleague. What touched Manny most deeply was observing Rosa in her natural element, caring for sick children. He visited the hospital occasionally, always discreetly, and witnessed her gentle touch with small patients, her ability to calm worried parents, her innovation in making medical procedures less frightening for kids. Other nurses commented that children asked specifically for Kuya Rosa when they needed care, using the affectionate diminutive that showed how quickly she connected with young patients. Sophia, now walking and beginning to talk, became a beloved figure in the hospital's pediatric ward. During Rosa's breaks, colleagues delightedly babysat while she completed paperwork or attended meetings. The little girl who once lived on streets now grew surrounded by loving medical professionals who saw her as a symbol of hope and resilience. Her laughter echoed through hospital corridors, brightening days of patients, families, and staff alike. Rosa also began a volunteer program on weekends, providing free health education to families in underserved communities. She organized workshops in barangays, teaching mothers about child nutrition, disease prevention, basic first aid. Her approach was always respectful, recognizing that poverty doesn't mean ignorance, simply lack of resources and opportunities. Families trusted her immediately, sensing authenticity that came from shared experience. 6 months into her career as a registered nurse, Rosa received recognition as Nurse of the Year at PGH, an unprecedented honor for someone so early in their career. During her acceptance speech, she mentioned briefly that everyone deserves second chances, that circumstances don't define character, only test it. She thanked an anonymous benefactor who believed in her when few others would, though never naming Manny directly, protecting his privacy as he protected hers. 2 years after that fateful night on Taft Avenue, Rosa established an innovative program at Philippine General Hospital, Street Angels Initiative, where former homeless individuals receive medical training to become outreach workers connecting vulnerable populations with healthcare services. The program was revolutionary because it used lived experience as qualification, rather than impediment, creating a bridge between formal medical establishment and communities most in need. Rosa had documented every step of her journey in a detailed journal, which became the basis for a book later published about resilience, dignity, and the power of human connections. Proceeds were donated entirely to expanding the Street Angels Initiative, creating a scholarship fund for other aspiring medical professionals from disadvantaged backgrounds. Her story inspired government policies reconsidering how social services assessed and supported families experiencing homelessness. Sophia grew into a bright, healthy child who frequently accompanied her mother on Saturday outreach missions, playing with other children while Rosa provided health screenings in informal settlements. By age 3, Sophia naturally switched between languages, comfortable in environments ranging from upscale hospital corridors to crowded barangay health posts. She embodied the bridge Rosa hoped to build, growing up understanding both privilege and poverty, comfort and struggle. Manny continued supporting other families in similar situations, inspired by Rosa's transformation to develop more systematic approaches to addressing homelessness through dignified employment opportunities. He never publicized his involvement with Rosa's story, maintaining discretion that allowed all her achievements to be recognized as her own accomplishments. Their occasional encounters in hospital corridors were warm but brief, acknowledging shared bond while respecting boundaries. The Street Angels Initiative expanded to include former drug users, trafficking survivors, and aged-out foster youth, all receiving training to become healthcare advocates for their communities. Rosa's insight that people with lived experience often make more effective connectors than traditional social workers revolutionized approaches to community health in the Philippines. International health organizations sent representatives to study the model for potential implementation in other countries. Rosa eventually married a fellow nurse she met during a professional conference, a colleague who admired not only her medical skills but also her commitment to underserved populations. Their wedding ceremony took place in the hospital chapel, with Sophia as flower girl and many patients and families Rosa had helped in attendance. Manny attended quietly in the back row, witnessing the joy of a woman who had rebuilt her life through sheer determination and community support. In her final autobiography, Rosa wrote that fateful night in the rain taught her that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have boxing gloves, sometimes stethoscopes, sometimes simply open hearts willing to see humanity in others. She dedicated the book for Sophia, and for all children who deserve a chance to dream beyond their circumstances. Looking back, Manny often reflected that helping Rosa taught him as much as it helped her. It reminded him that true championship isn't measured only in victories in the ring or political accomplishments, but in quiet moments when one human reaches out to another in darkness. Rosa's success proved that sometimes all a person needs isn't permanent rescue, but a temporary bridge for their own strength to carry them forward on the path they were meant to walk. Sophia, now a vibrant kindergartner, has no memory of those nights on the street, but grows up surrounded by stories of resilience, community support, and the importance of helping others. She learns through example that people's current circumstances don't define their future possibilities, that compassion creates ripples extending well beyond the initial act of kindness. In a house filled with laughter, medical books, and photos documenting the family's remarkable journey, Sophia absorbs values that will shape her own contributions to the world. As Rosa often tells medical students she mentors, "We found our way not because we were rescued, but because someone believed we had strength to rescue ourselves. Now it's our turn to recognize this strength in others." Her life became a living testament that dignity preserved and opportunities provided with respect can transform not just individual lives, but entire communities. One family, one chance, one act of human recognition at a time. If you like this kind of story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next videos.